I'm Harris Faulkner. This is the Fox Report. It's the bottom of the hour. Time now for the top of the news. Former Vice President Dick Cheney appearing exclusively on Fox News Sunday, strongly defending the recently exposed top-secret government spying programs, saying had they been in place years ago, they might have helped stop 9/11. He also opened up about President Obama, saying the White House's handling of several scandals has hurt the president.
In terms of credibility, I don't think he has credibility. And one of the biggest problems we have is we've got an important point where the President of the United States ought to be able to stand up and say, this is a righteous program, it's a good program, it's saving American lives, and I support it. And the problem is the guy has failed to be forthright and honest and credible on things like Benghazi and the IRS. So he's got no credibility.
Also, the former vice president not mincing words about the scandal surrounding the IRS and its targeting of conservative groups, calling it a clear example of political intimidation.
I think it's one of the worst abuses of power imaginable when you think of the power of the IRS. And it clearly was used for political purposes to go after a particular category of organization, happened to be conservatives, my side of the political spectrum. But regardless of who it was, that is the kind of gross abuse of power that everybody's legitimately concerned about.
Vice President Cheney also spoke about his own health and his history of heart problems. He told Chris Wallace it's, quote, nothing short of a miracle that he wakes up feeling good every day. Fox top story tonight. It is where we started at the top of the hour. The crisis in Syria worsening by the day, and news that Iran is getting further involved will only stoke tensions even more in that region. Iran will reportedly send 4,000 of its elite Revolutionary Guard troops into Syria to defend President Bashar al-Assad's regime. Now, as we know, America cares about this because this comes just days after the Obama administration revealed its plan to arm and train rebel forces after months of criticism for not getting involved there. Stuck in the middle, millions of civilians in the crossfire of now 2 years of civil war, where more than 90,000 people estimated to have died. Joining me now is Christian Whiten, a former State Department senior advisor, author of the upcoming book, Smart Power Between Diplomacy and War. We could use a little bit of that right now, Christian. Good to see you.
Great to be here, Harris.
Let's start with Syria. You know, you and I spoke earlier, and you said there's one really important thing that we need to know now that the administration has decided to wade into this. You criticize it for being late in the process, but you say, what is the exit strategy?
That's right. This is, after all, an administration that came to power partly by criticizing its predecessor, Obama's predecessor, for supposedly not having an exit strategy in Iraq. Well, if we do a no-fly zone, or even if we only just arm the rebels, we nonetheless become a belligerent. What's the plan to extricate ourselves, and what's the strategy on the ground? After all, just having a no-fly zone isn't a strategy. It might be part of a strategy, but is the strategy to replace Assad? Replace him with whom? What happens then? And how do we get out? None of these have been really answered. The president hasn't addressed the nation to explain why we're becoming a belligerent, and certainly Congress hasn't really been briefed and not been asked for permission either.
So what do you say to those critics who say, well, okay, first you wanted the American military to go in early, now you say it's too late. Is there any way that we really could have dealt with this?
Right. I, for one, never wanted the military to go in. I think Senator McCain and Graham speak for Senator McCain and Graham on the Senate. They really don't have a following. They, of course, have wanted a no-fly zone from the beginning, just like they wanted one in Libya, and before that Bosnia, and before that Iraq. This is kind of their half-clever way of going to war. But over the last 2 years, something big has happened. We've gone from an opposition that was mainly focused on dislodging Assad and resisting Iranian influence to one that's much more mixed with foreign fighters, foreign jihadists, some who proclaim themselves aligned with al-Qaeda, others who are just very bad Islamists, including one group that executed a young Syrian right in front of his parents for just using a common phrase that included the term Muhammad for blasphemy. So it's become, you know, frankly, a lot more like, to use a historical analogy, the Spanish Civil War, where both sides are just loathsome in many respects.
You know, last night I had this discussion with Major General Bob Scales about, you know, the kind of creep, the mission creep of when you go in and how long you might get stuck. But politically and from a diplomatic position, it would seem that we might get stuck there too. How so?
Well, again, just this is not having a clear goal where to go in the Middle East, and this has been a problem throughout the Arab Spring and before that Persian Spring, where Iranians took to the streets and rose up. I think the objective should be clear enough. It should be resisting Islamism, whether it's on the battlefield or whether it's Islamists like the Muslim Brotherhood. But problematically, the Washington foreign policy establishment, not just Obama, but also the McCain-Graham side of things, has said, the Muslim Brotherhood is okay. I just don't think we have our head in the game about who our enemies are or what the Iranian government in particular does to support Islamists throughout the region. And barring that, I don't think the American people have faith that we can get in, accomplish a mission, and get out.
Well, and on a really basic level, Christian, then you might argue if you don't have a plan, that's pretty easy to exploit the people who don't have a plan once they do try to make a move. Let's talk a little bit now, move forward and talk about North Korea. How credible do you think this offer is by Kim Jong-un that they want to sit down for talks? I mean, they've been talking for months now with, test firing rockets and so on and so forth about launching nuclear war on their neighbor, South Korea, knowing that we'd get involved there.
Right. It's not that uncommon, actually, coming off of a cycle of belligerence, whether it's belligerent conduct, missile tests, missile warnings, nuclear tests, or belligerent statements like they're going to attack another country or the United States directly, for North Korea to want to get into talks. And it always prefers bilateral talks with the U.S. that brings trappings of legitimacy, and it often brings goodies. So I think North Korea is candid in that at this point they want talks. I just think they're not going to deliver anything. It's like Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football. They're more than happy to let us take a swing at it again because often it's good for them.
Right. Interesting. And of course, the timing is the world is focused on Syria, so it's a good time for them to make some noise. Real quickly, before I let you go, we heard former Vice President Dick Cheney bring up Benghazi in his exclusive interview with Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday today. Let's play a little bit of that, and then I'll get your quick reaction.
My experience was, especially on 9/11, Chris, especially in that part of the world, where we anticipated that al-Qaeda might well try to mark the anniversary, if you will, of 9/11 with an attack, especially in a location where they had an enormous amount of intelligence that said the consulate's in danger. And you get the broadcast, the first thing that comes out of the embassy is the ambassador saying we're under attack. And it should have been on the step before that ever happened.
A lot of Americans want to know what happened that night in Benghazi, Libya, at our diplomatic outpost where 4 Americans were assassinated. Including our ambassador to Libya, Christopher Stevens. Let's take a quick look at a Fox News poll that shows that 73% of Americans who were surveyed and say that Benghazi should be investigated by Congress. Congress should go in. Now, obviously, they care about the other scandals that are going on, but it makes the top 3/4 of Americans want to know about it. Your quick thought.
We've learned a lot about who dumbed down the information that it was a terrorist attack. It was the State Department. What we still don't know is what Obama was doing that night, who gave the order not to do anything, and who created the phony narrative that was a response to the video. So Congress is going to need to take a look into that upcoming hearing for Toria Nuland, who was involved in the cover-up and is getting a promotion from Obama. That'll be a chance to ask questions, but we should also get Hillary back before Congress to explain why she misled Congress in her own testimony. Then maybe we'll get to the truth.
All right. Want to get the former Secretary of State up there. Christian Whiten, thank you very much for your time and perspective this evening.
Thanks. Great to be here.